Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Shreddin with Aaron. Today's topic is the Chromatic 2-5. If you've played jazz for a while, you've probably run into a few 2-5-1s, which is a common chord progression that just basically follows a functional harmonic motion of 2 to 5 to 1. And you know, this is sort of a common theme we see in a lot of jazz tunes. So as a player, you learn how to approach these. You learn how to recognize them on a page, how to hear them, and how to approach playing over them. One thing that we see in a lot of bop tunes is the chromatic 2-5. And basically what this is it's just a 2-5-1, except you leave out the 1, and then you just move up or down chromatically. So a 2-5-1 would go. A chromatic 2-5 would go. So it's just leaving out the 1 and it's going 2-5, 2-5, 2-5, 2-5, and it's just moving down in half steps. Some of the tunes that you will hear this in include Moment's Notice by John Coltrane, Stablemates by Benny Golson, Blues for Alice by Charlie Parker, and there's a bunch more. Those are just the 3 I can think of off the top of my head. And they're used for different purposes. So sometimes the chromatic 2-5 is used kind of as just a way to get through a chord progression from one key to the next. Sometimes it's actually used as a transition between other chords. So for example, if we're in the key of concert F, alright, one of the common things you see in the key of concert F would be a 3-6-2-5-1. Alright, so basically what we're doing is we're going concert A minor 7, concert D7, concert G minor 7, concert C7, down to F major. Sometimes what you'll see is instead of just going 3-6-2-5, you'll see people writing 3-6 flat 3 flat 6 2-5-1. And this is a way to spice up a chord progression for an improviser. It's also just a way to add some color. So we see this as a transitional thing. We also see it as a technique just used in tunes to shift around in an interesting way. For example, Stablemates by Benny Golson. It starts off with a 2-5 E minor 7 to A7. And then it goes down a half step and does E flat minor 7 to A flat 7. So it goes. And this is just a way for Benny Golson to write an interesting tune that shifts harmonically as it goes. So how do you play over this? I think the best way to approach this at first would just be to approach it very simply. And so on and so forth. And then from there you can flip it around. So I'm going 7, 5, 3, 1, 3 of the 5 chord. And what's nice about that is that the chord the tone you end up on is actually the same as the starting note for the next one. And it depends on how long the chord is held for. So if it's a longer one, So I'm just applying a typical 2/5 pattern, and I'm just going down in half steps. And this would assume that the 2 and the 5 are twice as long. So one example that does this a lot is the Eternal Triangle, which I played at the beginning of this episode. The bridge, it just does chromatic 2/5s for the whole thing. It goes B minor 7, E, B flat minor 7, E flat 7, A minor 7, D 7, A flat minor 7, D flat 7, etc., until it gets back to the A section. And that's it. So I'm going to demonstrate playing some of these sort of stock 2/5 patterns over that bridge. And that resolves back to B flat. So this is super simple when I do it that way. And it just takes the patience to practice the technical facility to play those ideas. And that's just a good starting point. You can't get creative unless you can do the bare minimum, which is just playing the chord tones and just arpeggiating it. If you can't do that, forget about playing anything else. It's a foundation you have to play musically over this kind of chord progression. All right, so now you can start exploring some different creative options once you've gotten some of those stock licks down. All right, I'll do another one. So there's a lot of different things you can do. Once you've explored the basic concepts, now you can start basically embellishing that and mixing and matching different patterns so that it's not just the same old thing, but you're still adhering to the chord changes. So I'm really staying pretty simple with that stuff. It's just that I'm mixing and matching the phrasing so that it sounds more interesting. If you transcribe what other players do on this, like Sonny Stitt and Sonny Rollins on the Eternal Triangle, you'll find they do a lot of the same stuff. Once you've kind of mastered that, the next step that is a super hip trick you can use for pretty much any chord progression is you can start to anticipate the next chord change. So instead of resolving on beat 1 of the measure of the new chord, you can do a beat before that. Let me demonstrate. So I'm basically anticipating da-ba-da-ba-dup, 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 da, and it gets one beat behind each time, and then eventually you can catch up and resolve back to the 1 of the A section. You see that in those Eternal Triangle solos. They do that all the time, and it's super hip. Very simple, but super hip. Chromatic 2/5s. Part of jazz, like it or hate it. You got to learn how to play over it, and it just takes time. And, I think ultimately the way I like to approach it is very, very simply just to learn how to outline it and then learn creative ways to just mix and match different patterns over it. And if you screw up every once in a while, it's jazz, That's one of the beauty is learning how to cover up those mistakes. So it's difficult, but say I'm improvising and all of a sudden I hit a wrong note and I flub it, well, so does every other jazz player on the planet. That's part of jazz. So don't beat yourself up if you're not hitting all the changes. Just try to work on it and get better. But you know, when you listen to those classic recordings, you're going to hear those guys flubbing notes and making mistakes too. It's not bad. Mistakes are not a bad word in jazz. You know, it's something we have to learn to make musical, though. If it sounds like a mistake, it is a mistake. If it sounds like a musical decision, then it's not a mistake. All right, well, hope you learned something. We'll see you next week.